Oh, shalom! Shalom, my friends! Shalom, my enemies! This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And many people have called me the Larry Bud Melman of the Dave's Gone By show because that's what I am. That's what I do. I'm sort of the guy who comes on and says the silly, scary, controversial things, and then Dave comes on and tries to make nice. But I don't make nice. I have fun with wonderful guests like the comedian who is staring into his camera as we speak. His name is EDDIE BRILL. He has been in the comedy game for well on 4 decades now, has appeared everywhere, is playing everywhere, and is, on some level, best known for television work, which was being the warm-up guy, the guy that you came when you first went to the David Letterman show and were sitting there waiting for Dave and Paul and the band and beloved Larry Bud, and then the first guy that you saw came out, told some jokes, tumbled with the audience, made you feel good and got you ready to be into the show. That man is with us as we speak. His name is EDDIE BRILL, and shalom to you, EDDIE BRILL. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm good. I'm glad you're bringing the energy here at 10, helping me to come up to that level. It's fantastic.
You keep a comedian's hours? Did you go to sleep at 3 a.m. last night and then you just...
I didn't go at 3, but I woke up at around like 5:36 and then I just started writing. So, but yeah, like my hours are all over the place. I travel and then different time zones but I got some sleep in and I got some creativity in, and I made sure I was up early enough to be able to hang out with you in your beautiful Great Neck surroundings. I see you say Great Neck, is that?
Actually,
I remember years and years ago working at the Chi-Chi's in Great Neck. And what was interesting about the Chi-Chi's Mexican restaurant in Great Neck is that the audience would get drunker and out of control because they're all drinking tequila. So the key knowledge point for comedians was go on early before they're out of their minds and not paying attention because they're hammered, because there's nothing like tequila to ruin a good comedy show.
Oh my God. Well, or do you want them like where you can just say anything and they'll laugh hysterically?
Nah, you want them because then you're not connecting. It's like if you said, "Hey Eddie, how you doing today?" And I went, "Poker is 55 cents." And you're like, "What poker is 50? Nothing's 55 cents." You know what I mean? It's like you don't want that. You want to connect with the audience, and if they're a little drunk, there are ways to connect, but you prefer to have an audience that's sharp.
What was the line from, I think it was either Manhattan or Annie Hall, where Woody Allen says, it's like you don't want to play to someone stoned. Yeah. They're going to laugh at anything. It doesn't mean anything if they laugh. Right?
Yeah, and the whole point is you've written this material, you've carefully, painstakingly made it really, just made it shine and terrific. And then you have somebody just laughing at a setup because they have no idea what's going on.
Now, I never have any idea what's going on. That's why I'm a rabbi. But let me ask you something here, EDDIE BRILL. Can you share with us, like you were writing, were you working up an idea for your set, or were you writing something more for like film, or what were you working on?
A combination of, I have some I'm writing new material to go with some of the new shows I'm doing, and I'm also at the same time working on all kinds of things, scripts. There's a couple of jobs I have where they need me to write a script, another one where people want me to edit their set. There's many different kinds of things that I love to do, enjoy doing, and people seem to trust me okay with that.
Well, no, it's wonderful that you have that variety. It was like, I don't have any good ideas for my comedy set. Let me work on someone else's thing. Oh, yeah. I have to do this script today. This is for this. That's a wonderful position to be in.
And I love every part of it, even the frustrating parts, because to overcome any challenge, as people know in this life, to be successful at that is actually much more rewarding. Like I will tell you the story about this. I was in New Jersey and I was doing a gig, and there's great parts in New Jersey, but I get to the gig and I notice the crowd is very old. They're like 70s and 80s old, walkers and all this kind of stuff, which is fine. I've done
on the arms. I mean, I get it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, that's a different show.
Yeah.
But these people are very, very old, but I never have a problem. Age, race, creed. I don't even know what creed is. It's a bad Christian band. But there's all these different incredible, people that I performed in all different parts of the world. So I go up on stage, I'm the only comedian on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, EDDIE BRILL. I walk on and I get no laughs for the first 10 minutes, nothing, a zero. I actually, about 8 minutes in, I pull out a bit that I know is going to kill, nothing. So I jokingly said to the crowd, you're probably expecting Marty Brill. Marty Brill's an old time comic. He's a joke teller. He's a Catskills guy. He wasn't always known for writing his own material. He was a borrower in a sense. He was a guy that, I never met. And spreading rumors that I don't know firsthand, but I've heard second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, many times over. So I told the crowd, I said, you probably think I was going to be Marty Brill as a joke. And first I said, I just want you guys to know, I don't think this is going well either. And I got a laugh. Yeah. And then I said, you're probably expecting Marty Brill. And some guy in the front, very Lou Jacoby-like guy, he's like, yeah, we thought it was Marty Brill. So that's why they were freaking out. They're like, who's this young kid? And why is he not telling jokes? So I said, Marty Brill and I are very different. He's a Catskill comic and he tells old jokes. I'm more of the newer generation since, Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, Carlin era, where we make observations, we tell stories, we do that kind of thing. And, so we're very different. And I said, comedians, we don't really tell jokes. Not in this generation. We don't tell jokes like, guy walks into a bar, that kind of stuff. That's not comedy. That's, that's a bunch of Wall Street guys sitting around bored coming up with jokes. And that is actually true. Wall Street is where those people down there, because I know many people in that profession, they come up with some of the best jokes in the world. If I want to hear a joke, I ask some of my Wall Street buddies.
Let me ask you, though. I mean, you've given us the Chi-Chi story. You've given us you're not Marty Brill. What is the absolute worstest hell gig?
I'll tell you that. Let me just finish this part. We have a little time, I think.
Yeah.
So I tell the crowd, I don't really know any jokes. I said, I know 2 jokes, and I told them, and they laughed. And I said, does anyone in the audience know any jokes? And a guy raises his hand, and I come out Phil Donahue style with the mic, and he tells his joke, and he gets a big laugh. And then this woman gets up and she says, I know a joke. And then she tells a joke. And now, instead of dying for 45 minutes and getting through it, we had the time of our lives. So that's the key, is to really, whatever the scenario you are in, you have to make the best of it. Now that leads perfectly into what you asked. What is the worst gig? It's a very famous gig for being the worst gig in America, or probably the world. It's a place called the Charlie Horse, just near where the Pilgrims landed. That kind of area of the country.
So funny with the buckles on the hell. Yeah,
you're right. Those guys. And so I'm taking a date on this gig in Massachusetts, and she was very shy, and I've been wanting to go out with her forever. And she finally said yes. So we get to the Charlie Horse, and I walk in the main door, and it's just like the scene from Blazing Saddles at the end of the movie, where people are just fighting and hitting each over the head with pool cues, and it's a big pool hall. And this friend of mine who's on the trip with me is looking at me like, what did you get me into? And I'm like, I tell the doorman, I says, is this where the comedy show is? And he goes, no, it's in the room next door. And part of this is kind of sad. I went next door, and the room was only the wives and girlfriends of the guys who were beating the hell out of each other in the other room. There was a woman with a cast on her arm in a sling. There was a woman with a baby carriage, and she's drinking a Budweiser with the other thing. And if no one's paying attention, it's sad, really, because they're waiting. They're just waiting. It's funny, but they're waiting for their husbands or boyfriends to finish their beating each other up and then come home and hurt them or something like that.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
it's hilarious.
It's not funny, but it's hilarious that the way life goes. And it's an assumption that, but you see broken arms and all these, black eyes. I'm serious.
I remember at that gig, there was this woman with 2 black eyes. It was Dolly Parton. She'd been jogging. But
right. I understand what you're saying, Right. So anyway, so I go up on stage and no one's paying attention. They're just miserable, sad. The friend of mine is sitting in the audience, the only one sort of watching it. And the only other person who was paying attention was the woman with the baby in the stroller and the Budweiser in the other hand. And I said, none of you guys are paying attention. And it's kind of a shame. And I looked at the woman who with the stroller and I said, look, it really makes me happy that you're the one person who is paying attention. I don't know what the language on this podcast is, but I'll keep it cleaner. She goes, F you. And she takes her beer and throws it at the stage. I duck it. The glass breaks behind me and I am soaking wet and glass shards in my coat and hair. And, I just had to get through the time. And it was just brutal. And years later, I found out that was the club that was sort of the, fraternity, sorority, you had to pledge as a comic in the Boston area, but you had to do the Charlie horse and get through that. And now you're in the team of all the comedians who suffered.
You guys, comedians, they're all doing sets. They're all coming up together. Don't they tell each other, no matter what your agent says, no matter where you're booked, don't do the Charlie horse. Go to Charlie's next door, do a set there. Don't go to Charlie horse. And yet,
but at that time, I didn't really know I knew a few of the comics, and they didn't know I was doing the Charlie horse. I didn't know because I thought it was just another gig. And when I came on that, you did the Charlie horse, and it's aptly named, obviously. And it was horrific. And I survived.
The spleen fracture. That was
right. Very sad, actually. It was a very long, quiet 40-minute ride back to downtown Boston.
And by the way, how did she get any? I mean, I know you were on a date.
She was so nervous that, it was like, this is your life. I'm again making assumptions on what she's thinking, and we never hung out again. It was a very long, quiet ride back to town.
So sorry about that. But we are not sorry to have EDDIE BRILL with us in the neighborhood. Now, before I forget, because I'm shame on me, I forgot to take my quill and parchment and write this down. But you are appearing like in an off-Broadway situation thing or something. Tell us, but you just tell us.
All right. I live in the East Village of Manhattan. I've been here since college. Yeah. There's incredible venues all over this neighborhood, and one of them is called Pangea. And it's run by this gentleman, Stephen, who's, we have so many mutual friends over the years. And I went to do a benefit for the Ukraine people, and they had it at this Pangea, 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 and it's on 2nd Avenue, like 11th Street. So I go to do this show, and the venue is spectacular. It's intimate, seats about 50 people, 60 people. The ceilings are nice and low. The audience was incredible. And I talked to Stephen, the owner, and I said, I'd love to do shows here. And he said, that would be great. Well, the New York Comedy Festival is coming. It's starting this week. So my son and I who's a stand-up comic as well, we put a show together, and a friend of ours named Anna, a friend of his more, Anna Bianco, is going to host. So it's the three of us, 7 o'clock on next Saturday, the 12th.
Next Saturday, the 12th. At Pangea. Forgive me for not writing this down, but I have this down now.
I'm okay. I'm totally good. I didn't plan anything either.
EDDIE BRILL and his wonderful son, who's, by the way, Marty Brill. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Yeah, Marty.
Sorry. What is your son's name?
Dan Madonia, and that's a whole other story. I didn't know I had a son until he was just before his 12th birthday.
For reals?
For reals. And now he's 35, and we've been very, very close. And we're it's such an incredible story. It's too long for one podcast, but it's really a great story. And him and I are like best friends, and we love each other like crazy, and we have such a good life, and we're so similar in so many ways. It's almost like, well, it's not almost like DNA doesn't lie. We never knew each other for 12 years. And I went on this is how long ago I went on his, I forget what's up, or what was the name of before Facebook, there was
WhatsApp or MySpace, probably.
MySpace. So I go on his MySpace. He loves hockey like I do. He loves the Beatles. He loves Elvis Costello. We really liked everything together, and I didn't grow up with him.
And he became a comedian of all things.
He became a comedian. He's a talented musician and actor. He's working on a film right now. He's doing a whole bunch of incredible things. And next weekend, we're working together in the city, doing this incredible gig.
Now everybody can go to Pangea next Saturday, or I should say next Shabbos, and see you guys working together. But how would you describe the differences in your comic style, or is even there the DNA like he's a lot like you and vice versa?
Different, but very similar, and we're very, like, I would say smart and silly is a great way to describe the kind of comedy. Very George Carlin influenced,
Yes.
material, and so we're very similar, but we have our, comics go up on stage and tell their truths. So there are stuff about his truth that are different than mine, and it's different perspectives. So, but we've worked together a lot now over the years, and we just have the time of our lives. In fact, we just got offered a gig to go to Fiji together to do this incredible gig and maybe do a comedy festival in that part of the world.
Oh my God! Could you bring me back some Fiji water?
I would easily do that, but I can just go down to the market here and get you some. But
Not the
it's much
same.
better from them.
There's microbes in the real stuff
Right.
that are so tasty. I cannot begin to tell you.
But they're microbes, so they're little and they're tiny. I'm going to bring the major probes.
Oh yeah, you feel them wiggling when you drink them.
Oh my God, it's so good.
We're talking with EDDIE BRILL. Can you name 3 comedians from like the because you started like the late 70s and really...
In college, I was in a comedy group with Dennis Leary and Stephen Wright and Mario Cantone, and we were all together in this comedy group. And a lot of incredible people went to Emerson College in Boston. Henry Winkler, Norman Lear, Bill Dana, Andrea Martin, and then after us, it was, David Cross and Bill Burr, and I mean, it's just Lauren Dombrowski, and it's all these amazing comedians that come from that Emerson, scenarios.
It's like Paris in the 1880s. Like,
yeah.
But so can you name like these are people that we all know? Were there a couple of comedians who everybody thought, oh, they're going to be so huge, and they were so great, but they didn't get they didn't become Dennis Leary, they didn't become these other folks, Andrew Martin, let's say.
Right.
Who would be like people who, how come that never happened for them?
Well, the thing is we'd have to make assumptions to wonder why that didn't happen. It might have been timing. It could have been family obligations. I know people who had to quit because they, had hardships. But in reality, what's success? Is success the most money? Is success the most? Yeah,
yes, damn it! Of course, it's the most money.
Not for me. Not for me. I grew up actually very, very poor with my family, and we had so much love and laughter that everyone in my family is very funny. My mother was the funniest person. We had comedy albums in the house. It was always fun and always funny, and you didn't really need money to laugh. You just
I do.
So when I make money in the scenario, that's a bonus, but it's not about that. So like if a comedian is famous, does that mean they're successful? No, there's a lot of very mediocre comedians that are famous. And, there are incredible comedians that no one's ever heard of, but comedians know who they are.
So who's your comedian at the moment? Like who's you go like, oh, they're hysterical and the world should know it and doesn't really?
Well, there's a guy, I've answered this question a lot, and so have many comedians, and we all sort of point to the same guy, this guy who's very funny, one of the funniest people we've ever known, and is successful. So it's not like he's not successful, but it's a guy named Kenny Rogerson. And every comedian who watches this and knows Kenny, he's so prolific, and he's still at it, and he's still hilarious. And he did Letterman back in the day, and he's done all these TV shows, and every comedian looks up to him as one of the greatest comedians in the world. And Kenny Rogerson, and
maybe it's just everybody. Maybe he has your problem. He gets booked in things, and you get like 60-year-old people with country western outfits. Wait, he's not Kenny Rogers. He didn't have skin surgery. What the hell?
Right, exactly. Right. There's no chicken, but he's actually. I wish I was as funny as he was. He's so great. But I'm not the only person to say this.
Yeah, sorry. You what?
I'm saying I'm not the only comedian who's ever said that. You see Kenny perform, you're in awe, because it doesn't mean he's not successful. To me, he's one of the most successful.
He has a career.
What he loves.
Yeah.
He does what he loves. He gets up every day knowing he's going to do what he loves for a living.
Did you love doing the Letterman warm-up? Was that?
Yeah. It was amazing. Ed Sullivan Theater with the Beatles and the Supremes and all these people on the stage. love working theaters. I've been doing it for a million years. I had done warm up for other shows. I did the Dana Carvey show warm up before Letterman, one of the producers over there, when the Dana Carvey show was not, no longer happening. They were writing over at the Letterman show. And when Letterman was looking for a warm up, they had me there. So I was there. I started in February of 97. In March of 2001, I started booking the comedians who performed on the show. So I did that for a
No,
bunch
no,
of
let me
years
ask,
as well.
to be in that position and be a comedian. Did suddenly could you tell who your friends are? Was there suddenly this thing like Eddie,
Yeah, it's
Seth?
very easy because I'm a comedian who, I understood what they were going through wanting to get on the show. And I gave every one of them the respect they deserved, whether they were right for there's thousands of comedians, and not just in the United States, around the world. I booked comedians from Ireland and England and Australia on the show. So say I'm making this number, 4,000 comedians, and you get 15 spots a year to put comedians on. So I have to say no 99.9% of the time. And there are definitely people who didn't like me because I didn't book them or they took it personally. But you have to learn. It's one of the hardest lessons to learn. You can only do the best you possibly can.
So
And I was always respectful to them.
even once a week, I would figure at least once a week to have a comedian, but literally 15, 20 times a year, that was the slot you had to fill?
That was the sort of average. I remember one year the most we had was 37 comics, and the reason why Letterman was sick, I think that was when he had shingles, and so they had a
I
guest
told
host.
him to get aluminum siding, but
Yeah, it just he didn't know. He would have gone to Rodney Dangerfield who sold aluminum siding before he was a comic. But anyway, there are, yeah, I guess when Letterman was out, we had a comedian pretty much every day of the week to fill the show out. And so
yeah.
there was a year we had 37, but I averaged 12 to 15 a year, like one a month, or, every once in a while, last minute.
Can I ask you also, and we're talking with EDDIE BRILL, by the way, of is political correctness and wokeism sort of hurting comedy or helping it, or a little bit of both? Like you
the
can't
thing that hurts, the thing that hurts the most, and it's been going on forever, is sort of judgmentalism of people evolve, hopefully.
I don't, but other people.
Yeah, all right, but people evolve, so we need to celebrate people evolving. I'll give you an example. Kevin Hart, one of the greatest guys in the world, hilarious, talented, funny, good heart. Kevin Hart, he goes out and does some homophobic material that he apologized for later. And look, it wasn't great jokes, but everybody does. I had jokes where I'm not so proud. I mean, every comedian does. You're trying out. It's not an easy job. If it was, everyone would do it because it's so spectacular. So Kevin Hart apologized for doing that material. He evolved. So instead of celebrating him evolving, people are going into his past and going, well, look how 10 years ago he said this. And that's the thing that hurts the most in the world, is people not celebrating. People are more worried about the sins, than they are for the beauty of an evolving society.
Wow, I love it. And also, let's be fair. I mean, you, back in the day before all this was going on, you took some shit for saying some very legitimate things to the New York Times, right?
But that
And
wasn't
it cost
legitimate because it was
you
taken out of context. This was very irresponsible reporter came by, and I chatted to him, and he brought the thing toward about women, and I gave him a specific example how there were some comics that I recently had seen that appeared to be not authentic, and it wasn't just men. It wasn't just women. It's the same advice I'd give to women that I'd give to men. It's not about men or women. It's about comics going on stage and being their most authentic selves. And when you're not being your most authentic self, that's where that's the suffering. So I brought that up, and so he interviewed a bunch of people who said, look, he didn't put me on the show. Well, I didn't put on 3,800 comedians,
right.
It was one comedian who he kept in the article. It said Eddie only books men. He only books white men of over 50 years old. And the guy who was writing the article asked me for the list of the comics, and there was one person that fit that, category. Jake Johansson, who was older and brilliant and was on the show 50 times because he's a brilliant comedian.
Yeah, I remember.
Right. But he didn't, but he still put that, and if you look at the list, there's African Americans, and there was a Bangladeshi comedian.
He wasn't funny.
They're
not funny in Bangladesh. There's nothing.
You have to be funny in Bangladesh. I actually worked in Bangladesh.
Did you really?
I did. It was incredible because I write comedy for human beings and not so much for countries. And, when I went to Bangladesh, I didn't know how it would go, but it was spectacular because I was the most authentic me. I told my truths and they respected it, which is really important. So instead of saying, had all these different people from different walks of life, I even had a female comic who was making her network television debut, and she was a bit older than most of the comics on the shows. And that's one of the biggest sins in comedy, is that in comedy, the older you get, the better you get. There's no, Phyllis Diller, Don Rickles, they were really funny. Joan Rivers was, not only was she brilliant, but she and I were interviewed for an article for the Jewish newspaper where we talked about how it's a shame there's not more women in comics and all this kind of stuff. And Joan Rivers helped me with my very first Letterman appearance as a comic on the show. So she's, I was in Milwaukee and I was flying back to New York after my gig. She was at the airport because she did the big theater in town. And I went up to her and I said, I'm on the flight, and, we met once before. And I said, I'm doing the Letterman show for the very first time in a week and a half. And so the flight's taking off. She comes over and switches seats with the lady that's sitting next to me. And she has me go over my set, and she gives me notes and all this kind of stuff. So I've been very generous to all humans as far as comedy, but you can't please everybody. And unfortunately, this irresponsible reporter made it look, and all the comics that I've dealt with knew that was a BS thing.
Well, please tell us, before we have you on to play the game with Dave and with these other people, I want to, so many more things I want to ask you. In fact,
let's talk about that stuff instead of the negativity.
Well, let's have, but I want to hear wonderful stories about comedians who, maybe comedians who are no longer with us. You have this lovely thing about Louis Anderson on your website. What are some legendary comedians that you have stories about?
Well, Carlin was my hero, and then I became friends with the family, and I'm friends with the family. Carlin hired me to, for his girlfriend to be a comedy teacher. And I said, but you're George Carlin. He goes, well, she's not going to listen to me. So, but I heard you're a great teacher. And you can't teach people to be funny, but you can workshop it. And I was doing that.
Wait, actually, what can you teach? Because either people have it or they don't.
That's exactly right. They either have it or they don't. But you can talk about what Joan had taught me was the nonverbal part of it, how more important it is to use nonverbal cues. Like Jack Benny got his biggest laughs on pauses is the ultimate example of using nonverbal communication. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of ways to manipulate the rhythm in the room to make it work for you and the audience. There's a lot of little things that you can only learn from doing it, getting on stage. The only real thing you can tell comedians to do, somebody once told, there's a guy named Jack Gallagher, who's a comic from Boston, lives in Sacramento now, genius, funny, talented man. And they said, can you give me 3 pieces of advice to be a better comedian? He said, stage time, stage time, stage time. And that's really the only teacher. But you can workshop it. What I do is we give each other feedback. We're very honest. We can learn how other people perceive us, which makes it great because it's very hard to see how we're perceived ourselves. And we can take the advice from these other people, or just let it rattle around your brain and go, no, I like what I'm doing. So that's, you can't teach stand-up comedy.
Wow.
Yeah. So Don Rickles and I became pals, and which was the thrill of my father's lifetime, because his hero was Don Rickles, and Don Rickles said, I love Eddie Brill on the Letterman show to Dave on the air, and made my father cry, happy tears. So it's been an amazing life, and it's still going on.
Lullaby, lullaby. As a matter of fact, it's going on specifically next Saturday, 7 o'clock in the evening. And remember, you don't want to be there the wrong hour because you got to turn
Right.
the clocks tonight. Make sure it's next Saturday,
Right.
past
12.
daylight savings, whatever the hell that is, 7 p.m. at Pangea, Pangea. It's on
Right.
2nd Avenue, somewhere like 11th Street.
11th, between 11th and 12th.
So you can actually see the street signs and see the numbers. You
Yeah,
go downtown, I don't know where the fuck you are because everything. What? Great Jones Street? What's so great about it? No.
Yeah. Well, Jones was great, but the street not so great.
Not so. But we have the great EDDIE BRILL with us. EDDIE, unfortunately, I have to go. I've got my congregation's been waiting for me for a half hour.
Oh my God. Are they congregating?
They are. And they're sublimating. They're doing all sorts of.
Oh, there's a lot of hatings. But no hating, loving.
Loving. Not my congregation. But okay. But Dave, who is the producer of this program, the host of this program, he's waiting in the wings. So I want to let the birds let him go. And he will be right here in about less than a minute to take over the program.
So you're leaving me, and I have to tell these stories again to somebody else?
Oh, either you can tell a story, or I can play my outro sort of ish Jew music.
I'm kidding. Whatever it is, I'm okay. You know.
Well, but are you among the tribe, EDDIE BRILL?
In a sense, yeah. I mean, I grew up going to, my family has a combination of Ashkenazis and Sephardim in there. It was a combination. My grandfather was born in Cairo, and there's a lot of that part of my family. And then there's the family in Poland and all that. And, I grew up with, some organized religion. And like Carlin, I questioned everything. And I kind of like to live in a world where we never consider the word sin to be a real word, because there's this, the Latin for sine is mistake. So you can make a mistake, but I would never, drown myself in a sin, because that's created by man. And I'm not in a world where I'm going to listen to every man or woman on their opinion. I'll listen to it and I'll see if it fits what I do. I have a lot of questions, but instead of really worrying so much about the answers that most people cannot answer, I just live my life in a very loving, lovely way, and it seems to work for me.
Yeah, wow, you've made me feel so good, because all these people that I've raped and murdered and robbed, mistake. Just it's a little.
It's a mistake.
A boo-boo.
Right.
See, and I'm not Catholic, so I can't confess it. So I'm just confessing it to you. Oops. Right.
Yeah, but I'm talking about that because that's not a sin. That's a crime against nature, and that's a different thing. You're
right. That is worse. I gotta rethink my priorities, actually.
Right.
But my priority right now is to bring. I know, Dave. I know you're waiting. All right, hold on. Just hold on. I'm gonna play a little music. Wait, or you want to tell a story, or I play a little music? Do too.
Play a little music.
I'm gonna play a little music for the wonderful EDDIE BRILL. This is Rabbi Sol Solomon. Please come to Temple Sons of Bitches for your religious needs. Please go to Pangea next Saturday for your Shabbos comedy needs. And please listen to this music as we wait for Dave.
Take care now, Rabbi.
Thank you so much.